Okay, today's daf, Be'ezus Hashem, is Masechta Bava Basra, daf Kuf Yud Beis. We're going to begin from daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis, the High Tana. Very simple topic that we're discussing. We're discussing over here is how do you know when a wife dies that the husband gets the inheritance? That's basically the topic. So yesterday we ended off with one source, but there is another source that the Gemara is going to bring down and bring another psukim throughout Tanakh that says that a husband inherits his wife, which is not really, if a wife is from one Shevet and let's say the wife is from Shevet Shimon and the husband's from Shevet Ruvain, maybe the Torah didn't want the husband to inherit his wife because there's a transfer of the legacy of the property from one Shevet to another. So we'll see more about that in the Gemara. So the Gemara says like this: V'hai Tana. It's about like 7 lines from the bottom. Hai Tana Maisila Mahacha. This Tana brings the proof again that a husband inherits his wife. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. This pasuk we saw yesterday. The Yorash Oisa, that he inherits her. Malamed, that's the source that teaches you Shahaba'al Yorish Es Ishtay, that a husband inherits his wife. Divri Rabbi Akiva. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yishmael says, Ein et tzarach. I don't even need that pasuk. Harehu Aimer, there is a pasuk that says, the Chol Habas, here the Torah tells an interesting thing, that a girl should only marry in Haimish. If she marries somebody from her Shevet. And the Torah was concerned about something. Why should a girl marry someone from her Shevet? Because in case she inherits any property, if she marries somebody from another Shevet, and that person inherits her, so then there's going to be a transfer of the property to another Shevet. So the Torah tells you clearly, straight out, that a girl should only marry somebody from her Shevet. So that's a proof that the husband inherits his wife. This is the pasuk. Rabbi Yishmael there's a pasuk that says, "V'chol bas yoreshes nachlos mimatos b'nei Yisrael." Any daughter who inherits property from the shvatim, le'echad b'mishpachas father, the Torah gives you advice. You shouldn't look for your basherta. She should find somebody who's from her shevet. The Torah was concerned about that there's going to be transfer of the property ownership if she dies to her husband. So we see from there, the pasuk clearly seems to say that the husband inherits his wife. And then there's another pasuk. I don't want transfer of property from one shevet to another shevet. And there's a third pasuk. Shouldn't go from one shevet to another shevet. Now we're going to bring psukim in Yeshua and a psukim in Tanakh that shows that men inherited their wives. Look at this pasuk. Elazar ben Aharon, Mace. Elazar, the son of Aharon, died. Okay, now you know that Shevet Levi doesn't have any property, right? So where did they bury Elazar ben Aharon? They buried him begivas Pinchas benai, in a property belonging to Pinchas, his son. Now, where's Pinchas getting property if his father didn't have any property? Pinchas also is a Levi, a Kayan. They didn't have any property. Where did Pinchas get any property if Elazar didn't have any property? Ambala Malamed, it teaches you how did Pinchas, his son, get a hold of property. Pinchas married a woman. Umesa, and that woman died. The Yarsha, and he inherited her. So that's another pasuk that describes the idea of a husband inheriting his wife. Vaymer says the Bryce, I'll give you a fifth pasuk. Uskiv, this man called Skiv, Hailid es Yair, gave birth to Yair. And this Yair, Vahi loy esru mishalish armbats Gilad, he had 23 cities in the land of Gilad. He got rich, so he had a lot of cities that he owned cities. So now, if his father didn't have the property, where does his son Yair get the property? So that's Gemara's question. We go to Kufya Beis and Aleph. Give. Where did Yair get property if his father Skiv didn't have the property? Right? This teaches you that he must have married a wife, and through his wife's family, he inherited and he became rich. So from here, all the psukim, 5 psukim that teach you the same idea as a source that when a woman dies, her husband can inherit her, even though she's from another shevet. So now the Gemara asks the obvious question: what is the point of telling you? What is the point of telling you all these ideas that a husband inherits his wife? Why do you need all these psukim? Why do you keep bringing me psukim? Are you going to say that really the Torah knew that a husband never inherits his wife? So then what was the Torah concerned with a woman only marrying somebody in her shevet? The answer is simple, because even if her husband doesn't inherit, but her son is going to inherit, and the son is from the father's shevet. So maybe the father's not going to inherit his wife, but the son will. So that's what the Paris was concerned about. So we still don't have a source of where a husband inherits his wife. The Torah was concerned about that the transfer of the mother's property will go to the son, and therefore avul baal, but a husband lo yoris would not inherit. So that's the first pasuk. Tashma. So we have another pasuk that says I don't want transfer of ownership from of property transferring from one shevet to another. So therefore, that other pasuk must tell you that what's another way where a transfer of ownership happens on a property is when the husband inherits the property. So that's the source. The second pasuk is the source that the husband inherits his wife. So the Gemara says maybe not so. Maybe both psukim, source number one and source number two, are both telling you the same idea, that a son inherits and the husband doesn't inherit. And the Torah was strict that a woman should only marry somebody within her shevet. Therefore because if she's going to marry somebody outside her shevet, she gets a lav of loy sisoy and an essay, which means that the Torah tells you in a positive way, go marry somebody from your shevet. But really, again, both psukim are discussing the same idea, that a son inherits, but not a husband. So that's why we have pasuk number 3, Tashba, I don't want transfer of inheritance, of Israel inheritance from one shevet to another. And that's certainly the same idea is repeated again. So maybe that pasuk is teaching me that the husband inherits his wife. So the Gemara says, no, maybe all 3 psukim are teaching you that a son inherits the mother. That's true, but and therefore the Torah was strict that a woman should not marry outside of her shevet, and it gives you 3 warnings on that. That we're gonna make sure that you get 2 lavin and 1 asay, right? So therefore that teaches me that a person who marries outside his shevet gets extra lavin, but we don't see a source where a husband would inherit his wife. And the only thing that the Torah was only concerned about is that she shouldn't marry outside her shevet because her son may inherit her. So again, the Torah that we just did away with 3 psukim, that it's not a clear indication that her husband inherits his wife. Tashma come in here, Velazar ben Aaron Mace. And again, there it says that Elazar died and they buried him in property belonging to Pinchas. So how did Pinchas get a hold of property if his father didn't have the property? So the Gemara says, no. Elazar married a woman, Umesa, and she died. V'yarsa Pinchas, and Pinchas got it. Pinchas got it through his mother, not because Pinchas married somebody else and inherited his wife, but Pinchas got it from his mother. His mother was from another shevet. Mother was from another shevet. Elazar is from Levi, who had no property. He married somebody from another shevet, and Pinchas inherited it. Now, even though the mother should not have married Elazar, because we said before that the Torah was very concerned about, in the Chumash it says that you should only marry somebody within your shevet. Perhaps when the woman got married to Elazar, she had brothers that were capable of inheriting her father if he died. So she was never going to get any property anyway in this marriage. But suddenly her brothers died and she was left with no family. And then her father died. And therefore she inherited. So when she got married, she didn't do anything wrong, but now she inherited. She's married to Elazar. When she dies, Elazar doesn't inherit it, Pinchas inherited it. But you don't see that from these four psukim that a husband will inherit his wife. Tashma, come in here. Finally, Usgiv Hoylidis Yair, and there the Torah tells you that Yair got a hold of a bunch of cities. Now, he didn't get it from his father, and you're going to tell me he got it from his mother? That's the same idea that you saw in Tanakh earlier when Pinchas got from his mother. So it must be that Yair got it from his wife. Why do you need two psukim to teach you the same idea? So it must be that Yair married somebody and from another Shevet and inherited his wife with a bunch of cities, and now it belongs to him. So again, we went through an exercise. Of 5 psukim, and only because we can knock out 4 of the psukim that the 5th pasuk teaches us this concept that a husband inherits his wife. Now, Amalei Rapapa Abaya. So Papa said to Abaya, how do you know that Pinchas or all these psukim teach you, will come back to teach you that a husband inherits his wife? I will tell you certainly, Baal lo yaris. A husband doesn't inherit his wife. Again, a son inheriting his mother is much, much more closer because a son is blood relative to his mother. Therefore, they inherit. A husband inheriting his wife, they're really from 2 different families. They're really not blood relatives. So maybe the Torah doesn't have this concept of a husband inheriting his wife. That's why Kroi, the first 3 psukim, B'sibas Haben, Kedishinin, the first 3 psukim that we bought are to teach you that the Torah was concerned that the son should not inherit. You don't marry out, a woman should not marry outside her shevet because her son will inherit the property. Fine. So the first 3 psukim are knocked out. The Yair, and where did Yair get, or Pinchas, where did they get property? It's not like they inherited from their wives. Maybe there's another way to own property. Simple, the Zav Mizban. They bought it off somebody. Or Pinchas Nabe, the Zav Mizban. We know that there was transaction. Real estate was sold, even in Israel, and perhaps Pinchas owned property that he bought, and therefore he buried his father Elazar in one of his properties that he owned. Now the problem is even when you buy property in Israel, if it belongs to another Shevet, as you know from the Chumash, that you have to give it back by Yovel. You're basically only leasing the property for 50 years maximum. So Pinchas bought a property. He buried his father in that property, but now he has to return it after 50 years. So maybe that's how Pinchas got a hold of a piece of property. So the Gemara doesn't like that because Amalei. So Abaya answered to our Papa, Pinchas dezeva mizban loy matzas arma. You can't say that Pinchas bought a property and then he buried his father there. Then came because eventually after Yovel, the property should switch ownership back to its original owner. And Nimtza Sodesh Chayzeres beYovel. The field gets returned in Yovel. The Nimtza Tzaddik, this great Tzaddik Elazar, cover is buried in a property does not belong to him. And therefore, it must be family property that really, really belonged to Pinchas that could stay with Pinchas forever. How's that possible? Either he inherited it from his wife, which even if you don't like that, he inherited it from his mother. That's the only other way. And then Yair, that the Chumash is teaching you, the Tanakh is teaching you, that also he must have owned this property by inheriting his wife. So the Gemara says, no, Pinchas got a hold of a property, not because he bought it. There's another way the family of Kahanim can get a hold of a property and keep it even after Yovel. For example, if somebody's Magdish a field and he doesn't redeem it, now it gets repossessed by Hegdish comes Yovel time, and then it's distributed to the Kahanim. And that's how Pinchas got a hold of a property. So Meila, from that pasuk alone, the Gemara, you don't even see that Pinchas inherited anything. Perhaps he got a possession of this property, not through an inheritance, but a distribution from the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, the Gemara is pretty shaky on the idea from that source, from all these sources, of whether a husband can inherit his wife. So basically, we were left with just one source, basically, that a husband inherits his wife. Now the Gemara just says, let's say, now, let's say a man is from Shevet Ruvain, his wife is from Shevet Shimon, and the Torah is telling you that the daughter should not marry out. You should not marry out of Shevet Ruvain. She should continue to marry into Shevet Ruvain. But the Gemara's question is, what did the Chumash gain from that? At the end of the day, this girl, let's say she's a Basra, she inherited a property from her father, Shevet Ruvain. She inherits a property that belonging to her mother from Shevet Shimon. Even if she marries somebody from Shevet Ruvain, still the property she inherited from her mother is going to be transferred over to her husband from Ruvain. So soif hokamas akra nachlam shifted the email shifted the abba. At the end of the day, the inheritance that she got from her mother is going to be transferred over to the shevet of her father. So the Gemara says, umamai. How do you know that? Vidilma sha'ani hasam d'kshar. Maybe the Chumash wasn't concerned about that because eventually it already was transferred already. Because the fact is that her mother, this Basra mother, already was married to somebody who's from Shevet Shimon. She was already married to somebody from Shevet Reuven. So there's a transfer of ownership there. So the Torah wasn't concerned about that. The Torah was only concerned about the property belonging to her father, that should not be transferred to a strange Shevet. So if her father was Shevet Reuven, she should not marry somebody from Shevet Shimon. Says the Gemara, how do you know? Maybe you don't say, if it was done, we don't say. Maybe we are concerned about the property that she inherits from her mother. If you're going to say that we don't care about her mother, then we can understand that the Torah tells you she should marry somebody from her father, Shevet. The Torah is concerned about her son being from another Shevet or her husband being from another Shevet. Therefore, the Torah tells you, go marry somebody from your father's Shevet. If you tell me that the Torah was also concerned about the mother's property, if she's going to go ahead and marry somebody from her father's Shevet, she has to marry somebody. The property that she inherits from her mother, again, her mother's from Shevet Shimon, her father's from Shevet Reuven, and this daughter goes ahead and marries somebody from Shevet Reuven, the property that she inherited from her mother is going to eventually be transferred over to her husband or her son, who's from Shevet Reuven. So what did the Torah gain? So it must be that the Chumash is not worried about the mother's property, but only the father's property. And says the Gemara, fascinating thing, that maybe the Chumash was telling you, a girl, imagine a girl, a Bas Yechida. Her mother's from Shevet Shimon, her father's from Shevet Reuven, and she inherited in properties from her mother and father. The Torah is telling you that she should marry somebody who's just like her, that her husband should be somebody whose father's from Shevet Reuven and her mother's from Shevet Shimon. And that's what the Chumash is saying to her. That's pretty interesting. She's very limited on who she can marry. Now that's what the Chumash is saying. The mansur le'legavra davua, mishivta davua, the ima mishivta dima. She should marry a man whose father is from her father's Shevet, and her mother is from her mother's Shevet, and they're both the same. That's what the Chumash is saying. We go to Kufya Beis and Beis. Ihachi, if that's the pshat in the pasuk that she should only marry somebody like that, then why didn't the Torah say that outright? The Torah only tells you she should marry somebody from her father's Shevet. Why didn't the Torah tell you that this girl should marry somebody from her mother's Shevet? So the Gemara says, no, if the Torah would have written that she should marry both somebody from her father's and mother's Shevet, I would think that you can marry somebody from the same mix, but perhaps she could marry somebody whose mother is from Shevet Reuven, her father is from Shevet Shimon. So therefore, the Torah was pretty clear and says, marry somebody whose father has the same Shevet as her father is. So basically, what the Gemara is ending off over here is that perhaps, and maybe, that the Torah is telling a girl who comes from a mixed marriage. What does it mean, mixed marriage? Her father is from Shevet Reuven, her mother is from Shevet Shimon. And the Torah is telling her that, hey, I don't want you to marry somebody. I want you to marry somebody from your own shevet. That means you marry a boy from Shevet Ruvain, and you should also marry that this boy who should also have a mother from Shevet Shimon, just like you are. So therefore, even though the property ends up going to Shevet Ruvain, of course, because the main determination of what Shevet you belong to is your father, but still it's not, a total transfer, because a part of the blood in this husband that she's going to marry is from Shevet Shimon. So that's what the Chumash is telling you. She should marry somebody mamish exactly like her. She's from a mixed marriage of Reuven and Shimon, and she should marry somebody whose father's from Reuven and mother's from Shimon. One more piece of Gemara. We'll stop in 2 minutes. Tanya b'sibas ben, but Tanya b'sibas abal. A brisa that teaches you that the Torah was concerned about that a lady should not marry somebody outside her shevet, because they were concerned that the property that she owns will be going over to her son, and if her son is from another shevet, well, we don't want that. And also we're concerned that maybe her husband is going to inherit her, and the transfer of her property will go to her husband's shevet. Tanya b'sibas haben. We have a brisa that says this is a source that the Chumash was very, very concerned that a lady should not marry somebody from outside her shevet, because we don't want a transfer of inheritance from one shevet to another. And if she marries somebody from another shevet and she dies and her son inherits her, there's going to be a transfer of her property going to another shevet. The Torah was concerned about the son being transferred to the son. Maybe the Torah was only concerned about that she should marry somebody that her husband is from the same shevet, because if she marries somebody from a different shevet, the transfer of ownership of her property will go to her husband. So there's another pasuk. The Torah was concerned about that there might be a transfer of ownership to her husband. So what does this pasuk teaches you? That the Torah is also concerned about that it's talking about sibas haben. In other words, the way these brises learn is that we're not continuing saying that the only reason why the Torah was so concerned about intermarriage is because her son may inherit her, and if the son is from a different shevet, then there's going to be transfer of her property to another shevet. That is all you need is one pasuk to teach you that, which is but when the Torah tells you another pasuk, that means the Torah is concerned that even if she never has children, we don't want her. Let's say she takes birth control for the rest of her life. We don't want her to marry somebody outside her shevet, because there's a possibility that she'll die first, and her property is going to be transferred to her husband, who is from another shevet. So again, we have sources that teach you that a husband will inherit his wife, and therefore we don't want a woman to marry outside the shevet, because legacy property is going to be somehow transferred to another shevet, and we want to keep those properties within the shevet that Yeshua gifted that property for that shevet. Okay, we will stop over here.
Where did you leave off?
End of the page, mamish at the bottom of the page. Tanya, basically Kufyu Gimel Aleph is the Tanya Idach. So
Thank you.